Okay, well now let's commence the Brattleboro Planning Commission meeting of October 7th, a few minutes after 6. Let's start with the minutes of last meeting, September 4th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of September 4th?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Is there a second? Dan seconds, okay. Any comments about those minutes? No? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's all 5 of us here in person. And Bonnie, can you hear us?
Maybe just this way?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, I can hear you and I raised my hand.
Oh, okay, we'll trust you on that one. So that's all 6 of us in favor of passing those minutes. Are there any announcements?
I have a couple of announcements, whenever you're ready.
Yes, please, sir.
So the first announcement is that at the last meeting, I told you that there was going to be a public meeting on the Canal Street plan on October 17th. We're actually pushing that out to November. It's either going to be November 13th or 14th, so I'll keep you posted, but we needed a little bit more time to get the presentation in order and finish up some graphics, so I'll keep you posted on that. The comprehensive economic development strategy is being worked on, and with that they have priority projects that get identified. Projects can be submitted by October 15th. There is a website, BDCC's SEDS, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, where you can upload your projects. They have to be projects that you're kind of in charge of, so, but they're accepting projects at this point for inclusion into the SEDS. And what that does is, it's the comprehensive economic strategy. It gets approved by the federal government, and it can be helpful in obtaining funding. Just kind of puts out the projects in the region, and this is for all of southern Vermont, so it's Brattleboro projects, Bennington, and all the way in between.
Can you give us a couple examples of projects that people submit?
So the town will likely submit the pool project. It can be in all different phases of development, so even though we don't have a chosen pool project fully scoped out, or the costs, it is something that we're thinking about, so that could be a project. It could be, generally there are projects that are geared towards job creation, attracting younger people to come and live in the region, live and work. Some of it can be, workforce development. So for example, BDCC often has their pipelines project, which is working with high school students to get them, whether it's job training or thinking about, so those kind of things.
Okay.
And then just another announcement, many of you maybe saw the article that was in the newspaper late last week or this weekend about housing. I did a housing report to the select board, and what I reported is that we've issued permits for 63 new housing units this year. That is the highest number that we've done since 1989. And I really believe that the land use regulatory changes that we made, as well as taking advantage of some of the state programs like the neighborhood development area, which then provides some Act 250 exemptions, have really helped to increase the number of permits we're issuing. They're not all online yet, but that's half the
So
problem.
a couple of other big projects in the pipeline too, which was really exciting.
Yeah. Yep.
That was all part of Winston Crowder was in there with that. Was that including Putney?
What do you mean,
No,
Putney?
no, the housing.
No, just.
And Wyndham and Winston Crowder has.
Well, they've got some projects in the pipeline that it did include Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust projects here in Brattleboro.
Yes.
But the 63 were pretty much all market rate, mostly multi-unit
Okay.
as well.
You got SD Organ The one down
Those are
here-
pipeline stuff.
That's pipeline,
Yeah.
okay.
Is the chat notification just Bonnie saying she's
Oh.
there? or-
Did you see that, Gene?
Oh. She said she wishes she was here.
Oh,
Ah,
for the record, that has been submitted. Likewise, Bonnie.
Can someone tell me what the internet is in here?
Sure, it's the Brat Public.
Do we want the whole public to know this password?
I don't
think it's
see why not.
probably up on
public.
the wall.
Public. I don't see why we're not.
Okay.
It
There's a
is,
little card or something.
it's PASS, capital P, ASS,
Thank you,
the
thank you.
at sign, 123.
It was gas.
Thank you.
Okay, I think unless there aren't any.
If that's not right, sorry, Tom,
This
if
is-
that's not right, add a 4. I can't remember how many numbers.
Unless there are more announcements, let's move on to our first substantive agenda item, the perennial, whatever the perennial word is for monthly. Jeez, I'm out of it. The 2026 town plan. And that's the only intro I'll give. I just fumbled my words, so I'll take a break.
Great. Well, thanks for all coming in person tonight. John, did you want to speak first, or?
No, I will speak first, but very quickly. I just want to congratulate the staff on coming up with an excellent idea to sort of pull out some ideas. And remember, as we're doing this, this is not only just for us, but also potentially for other groups and organizations in the town. So please give us your feedback on the process, not only the content of it. Go ahead.
So the exercise that we have for you tonight is it kind of does a couple different things, but we're going to be doing, basically we've got 11 aspects of kind of community life / government that we have put on pieces of paper for you. And we're asking you to vote on those topics that are most important to you. We're doing weighted voting. You have 30 votes that you can place between those 11 boxes. Actually, Steve, did we send this to Bonnie?
It's on the server.
Bonnie, we're gonna send you a sheet too, so you can participate.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, sorry to interrupt. So, do you want to speak to the 30 votes, and I can?
Sure, yeah, and that would be in the same place that the packet materials live.
Okay.
So you get 30 total points to put in these categories, and you can distribute them however you like, except that you should not put more than 10 in any one category, so that you have a bit of a distribution, not just all of them in one. But you can feel free to give no points to certain things if you so choose. And we'll be doing that individually and then grouping back up to tally them all together, so that we get everybody's own ideas. It's one of the problems that often comes up with doing this all together on one board is you gotta plug into groupthink. So we're hoping this helps to facilitate a lot of different perspectives.
Just feels like team building.
You have a question, Dan?
Who tallies them?
I do.
Yeah, we'll tally them, and then there's another part of the activity, but yeah, as Steve said, we wanted it to be, not to have groupthink going on, so we thought we'd do it all individually on your sheets. Actually, if you don't have, does anybody not have a pen or a
I don't have
pencil?
my, I didn't know we do doing this, so.
You do or you don't?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I meant to
we were
grab
doing
some, but I was busy
These
grabbing the pizza.
exercises.
The other thing is we wanted to cap it, because if you think about things, if you think about the funding that a local government has, we only have so much, so we didn't want to be able to, we wanted it to be spread out, kind of like local government kind of spreads out their resources. So, yeah, so we're going to give you about 10 minutes or so you can give some thought to how you want to vote. You don't need to write your names on it, and then when you're done, you can cut it.
Okay.
Let me get some.
Does everyone understand?
Do we need to write our names on it
No.
so that we can do the second part? Because I know me, I'll forget what I answered on the first part.
If you want to write your names, that's by all means.
I just wasn't
Totally
sure,
fine.
because I assume we're handing this in, then we're moving on to the second part?
Yes.
So this is your first part.
Mhm.
This will be the second.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right, we power through that.
10 minutes
Let me
for the
just go
first
get
part.
some pens.
Okay. Got it.
We all have pens.
So is it,
So, it's a really interesting question. Categories are delivered for me and sort of high level. I would probably just interpret them the way you interpret them. Because,
Yeah, but I just meant from like, should we read out what the categories are?
oh, you mean as a suggestion for process? I think it's a good idea. Go ahead. Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea.
I'm just wondering, should you, or should someone read out the categories? We have 11 categories, is that right?
Yeah.
Should we read them out and just say that's what we're doing
For the sake of the public?
for the sake of it?
Sure, I'll try to project here. So the 11 categories are housing, historic preservation, sidewalks and crosswalks, that's one category. Road maintenance and paving, that's another single category. Bike infrastructure, natural resources conservation, public transit, hazard mitigation, tourism infrastructure, arts and culture, that's one category. And parks and recreation infrastructure, which is another one category.
So that was 30, was it 10 points for either one? You don't have to pick
No,
one.
you can allocate your points however you like, but not more than 10 points in any category, and you have a total of 30 points. So for example, you could do 6 things at 5 points, or you could do 4, 5, 10, and so on.
At the highest point. There we go.
It's always someone who finishes the test first.
Yeah, now I want to leave the room. I have another allergy, which is why I'm kind of
Oh.
sensitive about it.
Do you want me to check the,
No, it's okay, because I didn't need anymore.
Steve?
Just you say it.
Is this prioritized by the abilities of town government, or is this prioritized?
It's
just-
your priorities.
your priorities?
Oh.
Period.
But they are aspects of,
No.
to some extent, citizen government.
All right. Here's my homework. I got it.
You know, as a comment on process, I was doing this, right? And I'm doing it in pen, and I'm not really allocating the numbers dynamically as I go along. So now I've got like more numbers I want to put, but I'm at 30, so I'm scratching stuff out.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. So it might work better as a process to have something that people could sort of play with, like tokens or something like that. I mean, it's harder to work with, but.
Moving them around.
Yeah. That's right. So, okay, I didn't add up the way I wanted to, so I'm gonna move this one here and all the rest,
Yeah. Makes sense.
55 points from you.
I meant to put the stripes.
I don't know if you want to reallocate.
I gave one over. Slightly. 0 too, right?
Yeah, 0 is a lot.
Yeah.
Well, maybe 30 is too low, though, too. We kind of went back and forth.
Yeah.
This is a beta test.
Bonnie, did you get the email that I sent with the,
I got the email, but I didn't get the actual categories in this email.
oh, no, okay. Maybe I didn't send the right,
0, 0.
I got the explanation of it, but not the categories.
All right, this time I
I wonder if we could do this on Zoom. I wonder if Zoom has the capability to do dot whatever the heck it's called.
oh, I sent you the wrong things. Those were drafts. Steve, where did you put them?
In there.
Oh, I found it. I found it. Sorry about that. Bonnie, I will send it. Okay.
Bonnie, only have 3 minutes, or what should we do?
You can move on. You can move on. I mean,
Hands down?
We'll give you your 3 minutes.
Well, that's what I meant, like the 3 of the remaining 10
Oh, well.
from the beginning, or,
We can,
okay.
Well, while Bonnie is thinking, I can ask a related question that hopefully won't bother her. How did we come up with these categories?
They roughly match the elements in the town.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so they match, and then there are also, items that we often budget for at
Okay,
town level, but yeah.
just curious.
Like, so we broke out some of the transportation because there is actually like.
Broken out,
issues
okay.
there that
So-
way.
Yeah, I was just curious because I was like, maintenance and paving, wow, that's like really specific, whereas like historic preservation is like kind of broad, but that makes sense.
You need one more to be 0.
They used to force them. Yeah.
Give it to Bonnie.
Yeah.
He was saving that for Bonnie. Yeah.
Hot tobacco sauce? Oh, that's you, Sue?
No.
Clear any cold.
Bonnie, but this 10 things.
Gotta go to that charter review committee too. That's coming up. I did the safety stuff. Just watch the safety. Yeah, it's interesting.
What's your fun beverage?
I did see the blue.
Yes, it's mint tea with powdered ginger and honey and lemon. Supposedly,
They're out there full force.
at least I believe what I read online and the placebo effect.
Believing is half the battle.
I bought some of that cough suppressant stuff yesterday. And then after I bought it, or when I was there deciding what to buy, and I was like, oh, all these have all this artificial junk in them. But things were
We're just
saying like,
finishing up
some
with
of
a
them
couple of
analyses
the
have showed that it's no more effective than placebo.
Yeah, I
categories,
get,
or
those like
getting some of
really
those
throw
in.
me
So
for
I'm
loop.
curious
what-
Stuff.
what you thought about the categories, at least for now, while Steve is putting them in. Your question was a good one, though.
Yeah, I guess road maintenance and paving is very specific, but I can imagine that it would be of top of mind for some people, so it wasn't top of mind for me, but I understand why it's on there. And I'm not sure, I told you I'd forget all the categories. I don't know that there is necessarily anything that it could really be rolled into, because it's not the same as public transit, and it's not the same as bike infrastructure, though bike infrastructure certainly would include road maintenance and paving.
Transportation, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, transportation, I guess, but maybe that's too broad, because maybe we want people to really say whether they care about cars, bikes, or buses.
That was exactly our
Or
conversation.
our
on
future
that.
hovercrafts, whatever
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah, that is why we tried to break it out, because transportation seems too large of a category.
Yeah.
I don't know, park and recreation, I don't know,
Oh,
that shouldn't even
I
be on
didn't
that.
even.
But there was,
I didn't think that
I'm
was-
forgetting all the 11 categories too, but wasn't there not anything about economy?
Just more for interest.
Or,
Yeah, was
Commercial
there
or
anything
industrial?
about?
There was tourism.
Tourism.
Tourism, but not.
but besides that, there wasn't just
Yeah.
general workforce economy?
Yeah, which
or
incidentally, I
productivity?
probably would have put points for something more economic related, but I didn't particularly care about
Same.
tourism.
How would you describe a category that was related to the economy specifically for local, sorry, that's not even. I'm not
Economic
sure how- I'm not sure
development?
how you would break it out, right? Make it clear that it was the economic stuff not related to tourism.
Well, I don't know that I would. I think maybe I would just call a category like economic development and maybe get rid of the tourism category. Because tourism is within economic development, and to me, unlike, I don't know, I guess a little less so than the transportation umbrella idea, it bothers me less to lump those together. Because I think they're both getting at jobs. I mean, that's a lot of the point, right? Or-
Well, the tourism infrastructure, actually, when we were thinking about it, was about, wayfinding signage,
Oh.
maybe marketing, because we've heard that from some organizations.
But I
It
think
could
you'd
be
have to say that.
Bathrooms in the downtown, things
Oh,
that,
okay, that's not what I
Not
thought
what
of,
you
so
think.
I think you might need to describe what that is. Yeah.
I think,
I think economic development, like growth, like getting businesses, something like that. How do you bring those in? That's something that should have been emphasized. How do we create, stimulate businesses?
Maybe a way to approach it would be jobs, tourism-related jobs, I don't know, big companies, jobs, high-tech industries, whatever, sort of next level of breakdown you wanted to.
No, I don't want any of those.
Well, that's an important point to clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we need economic development, we need businesses. So how do you
I just don't want to
put that, how do you categorize that?
Part of the discussion actually was, how much effort should we put on outsiders spending money versus doing things, if you will, for locals as well.
Well, and incidentally, that's why I didn't pick any points for the tourism one. I focused my points on things that were related to people who live here and who are existing here. That was just me though, but that's why I didn't put any points
Yeah.
for that category, because it seemed more good.
Now, that's a question I would certainly like to tease out as we talk to the town, right? I mean, how much do you want to invest in?
Economic growth, I would
Well,
say.
again, economic growth related specifically to having people come in and spend money locally in town versus say.
Well, my
jobs.
thing is, if you don't have a business, if you ain't got anything, there's nobody in the shop, so you're not gonna have any growth. So you wanna stimulate, how do you create a way to build economic growth in industry and businesses to create and to draw in tourism people?
Dan, do you have any thoughts right now?
I'm wondering how much agriculture might.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
That's a great.
Yeah, like land, working land
Yeah.
use, traditional
Is
land.
that should be in the town plan?
Oh, certainly.
It is in the town plan right now.
Agriculture's
So
not,
I would think that.
agriculture's right, not required by the state, but is in the last town plan.
So I would think
And
that's.
and actually, as we were looking at the numbers, if you remember, not agriculture in the sense of big farms, but agriculture in the sense of value-added, agriculture, if you will, is still an important part of the economic scene here in Brattleboro. I think that's actually a great point, yeah. I would agree with you strongly.
And there's probably a lot of people who would care about that one, but I
Yeah.
bet if you didn't put it on the list, you might miss getting that information.
Yeah, no, I think that's great.
Another source of a bunch of ideas, and I've kind of criticized this before for a different reason, is in the beginning of our current town plan, under what like the main theme of our town plan is, or the main goal is quality of life. And there's like 12 different subparts to that. Public safety, healthy neighborhoods, good jobs, housing choice, quality healthcare, environmental quality, entertainment, recreation and leisure, visual quality, education opportunities, strong and vibrant downtown, sense of community, affordability, transportation choice. Some of those things are kind of like thematic nouns on the same level as the things here, but some of them aren't. They're more like how you feel, like affordability
Yeah,
sort of.
that's the
So,
challenge.
but I feel like you could, I think there's a few good ideas in here to also bring in.
I do think, though, you could very possibly tease out a lot of those values on this part of it.
Okay.
Because some of those values that are expressed in those 12s would be why you're voting for what you were voting for on the last sheet.
Right, so sense of community as one of the quality of life things could be why someone likes arts and culture.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Bonnie, do you have any thoughts about this exercise? Content or process?
It's great. I don't really, I'm just enjoying listening to everyone, but I am starting a new project and it would be agricultural, but I don't know how that fits in with what we're talking about.
Another thought I
How
have.
about that, Bonnie?
Oh, do you have a response to that?
Well, no, I mean, if you're not sure and you don't want to bring it up now, I'm always happy to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. Come visit when I'm better.
Yeah.
Another thought I have is that if people have realize how their input is going to aggregate with others, and they really want their priorities to try to have a greater chance of winning out, then they may not, this is true with everything that anybody does, right? But they may not honestly answer the questions how they want, and they may put the maximum 10 on their 3 favorite things. And it's just, maybe you just can't avoid
That's why these
that.
guys came up with the 10.
10 instead of allowing 30.
Of course, that's human nature, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure you could legislate, if you will, against that set process.
Okay, just.
It's a good point, though.
We figured if we limited it to less than the 10, then we would probably be artificially making people
Right.
spread them out more than they might want to. Whereas the
Seems
10
reasonable.
seemed like a fair constraint.
Seems reasonable to me.
So, we will share the top results. No, that's not it.
Just show the graph. It's a good tally. Look at that.
There you go.
Can't really see it.
So,
Housing.
so for your priorities, for this group's priorities, it was housing.
I should have ordered these by the number.
That's okay. Followed by sidewalks and crosswalks, followed by historic preservation, public
I
transit,
think those are tied, yeah.
and road maintenance. You think they're tied?
No, actually.
Okay.
No.
I think public transit might.
Yeah, that's 4th.
Then hazard mitigation, natural resource conservation, tourism infrastructure, bike infrastructure, arts and culture, and parks and recreation infrastructure. I think that's the order, but close enough. Are you doing something?
Oh, no, I was just gonna
Okay.
see if I could quickly reorder them, but
Okay.
I don't actually know how to do that.
So the next thing, the next part of this exercise that we thought we would do is kind of have, sorry.
I can,
So what we wanted to do was have a conversation about the values of why you maybe voted for the certain items, and or what are the values, not why you voted for yours, but out of the top 3 we were going to take. So housing, sidewalks and crosswalks, and historic preservation. And then have you tell us, with some words, like, what do you value about that, to kind of try to drill down is, why is this important to you?
And then we were gonna do a word cloud with the words that you write. So on your second sheet, there's an example of public transit, like some of the things that you might value about that.
So are we doing this based on the group's results?
Based on your own,
On their own?
what led you to
Okay.
Okay. I thought it was-
respond that way?
Okay.
So could I get the sheet here?
Okay, we'll give you your sheets.
Yeah, I'm not gonna remember what I wrote.
I don't remember what I value.
This is valuable feedback.
Very,
So
very.
let's just start
No, it's fine.
realizing that the name would be helpful.
Value word, value word, value
This is John.
What's it? All right.
That's This might be you.
Did you score those two?
Yeah, although I had to shave some points.
I gotta- I have to come back
That's
after
still
class.
40.
Didn't do too good. But I have to.
So I'm just pulling out this. He actually put down, I'm just gonna take these of those and we'll have to create that as a work product afterwards, but I was thinking of moving them based on the folder that
You guys can hold on to your sheets because we're gonna discuss it from there. We're gonna do a word cloud after the fact. Take too long to do it.
I am gonna take down their answers. though.
Yes.
This is valuable feedback.
Yes.
I didn't think about how they would connect. We would just be taking the sheets and doing this afterwards.
Right.
The line service aspect just won't be possible unless it's like somehow easy enough to like scan these
Yeah.
doing it, but I doubt that we could.
So this was hard, actually. I think probably a third of these words are not value words.
Okay.
So it's just my feedback on the word. I mean, it's a good idea. It's just hard for me to come up with value words.
Yeah.
It's hard for me as well, and the thing that comes to mind is maybe like asking people more about the goal that they hope to get to, and the value that, like, I could name why I like these things more easily than I could name my underlying values. It's just my ethos.
That's good input. The challenge is to make it long enough to make it useful, but short enough so that we don't, we aren't getting like paragraphs.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
If the why is the same sort of like word or short phrase, then I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, you're right.
With the value versus the why.
The other thing is a word map. I think is could be potentially a really valuable tool to have as an output of this exercise.
So Tom, one of the things I'm constantly reminded of the fact, those 12 things at the beginning of quality of life, like wasn't really satisfying or deep enough or really saying much about Brattleboro. It was kind of generic.
Yeah, I feel like
And
every
so-
municipality in the whole country could write that, and
Yeah,
The fact
yeah,
that-
so this was, in my mind, of attempting a little bit deeper than quality of life.
oh, sure, but I
As
think.
to, what frames this town plan.
Sure. Well, one thing is like when I gave points to natural resource conservation, I was interpreting that, or I was aspirationally interpreting that as something broader than just actually conserving land through easements, for example.
Yep.
I was viewing it, even though I literally understand that it says conservation, but I was thinking more just broadly environmental quality. It's just one of those things on the quality of life thing.
That still, I think, reflects how we were thinking about this.
Okay.
Ultimately, what we, I think, will try to do, and I think this was gonna come after the second piece, that we would ask for feedback on the concept, but we were going to do these first 2 rounds, and then in a separate, likely in a separate engagement event, so that they didn't take all night. We would be asking people, giving them the sense of where we're at with that particular category and what is sort of the range of what statute allows for, and then ask them, how do you think we're doing? Should we be doing more of what we're doing, less of what we're doing? Are we right on the money, or should we have radical change, something totally different within that category? And I think that's sort of where that would go.
You know, Tom, it was really interesting for me because as we were going through this, I learned, for example, that the town can't force income restricted housing. It can subsidize it, but it can't force it, right? And so I thought personally the notion of clarifying for people what can actually be done by law, if you will, is very important. Because people, you know, they'll say, oh my God, we should just flood the town with housing or whatever, right? As an example. And it's important to know what the boundaries are of what can be done. Maybe not before you say that housing is top priority, but certainly somewhere in the process. It's also a learning experience for the groups going through it.
Do we have everybody's sheets?
Just a minute.
Oh, sorry.
I wonder if another option might be to pre-select like maybe 50 value words and let people assign value words to their choices.
That would have actually been helpful, I think, because when asked to come up with a value, I just was like, what are values?
Well, it was a little
I
bit,
just
honestly, for me,
drew
it was a
like
little
a
bit of a
total
vocabulary
blank.
problem, right?
There are words that end in the
I can't
letter
think of
Y,
the word.
apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. A lot of
Yeah.
mine did have that, yeah.
I mean, you could make it broad enough so that nobody feels like a value that they might have is left out.
It's kind of like those little magnetic pulling words.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Yeah, so I mean, I could just take note of
That's her answer, Tom?
Well, that was from the previous,
Okay.
the previous one. She gave 10, 10, and 10. Oh, wait, I guess we weren't sharing. Well, she posted them right there. So. I guess if it's visually there, I can say it.
I haven't taken down the answers.
Okay, so do you want me to pass it? Do you want me to pass them then?
Pass it. I haven't taken.
Next time I do the exercise, I'm gonna do 10, 10, and 10 as well then. I wanna see my priorities closer to the top.
You know, it's kind of funny looking at how I responded because I'm sure people are all different about that. I would have probably done, you know, maybe 10, 10, and then 2 5s. And then I said, well, my God, I've got to worry about sidewalks. So I had to juggle my points around, you know?
So,
Well, it's good to be honest and genuine, so.
so we didn't get a chance to put these all down, but we thought we could at least talk about it and share
You picked out the roads you wanted already, or?
This one.
Mine's in blue.
No, I'm gonna take them back at the end and then we'll take all the data.
Nice new pencil.
Mine, there's a bunch of scribbles on it.
Should my hieroglyphics
Yes,
stand
exactly.
out?
You know, y'all like neat writing.
Little lengthy, mark.
Yeah, I'll have to take those back because we did want to do a word cloud thing, but it
Right.
time kind of, there you go. It's too difficult to input together. But yeah, I mean, I think in a public meeting or in a public activity, you know, we could break people up into what are your priorities and, you know, at different tables, and then go have discussions there to kind of hash stuff out. But does anybody want to share kind of what their top priorities were and then some of the words associated with it?
Well, I chose housing, bike infrastructure, and hazard mitigation. And with housing, I finally came up with a value word, I think, which is equity and safety. And for the bike infrastructure, the main reason that I chose that one was for me that had to do with climate, and the same with hazard mitigation. I chose them because of climate. So I guess the values behind that would be like safety and predictability.
Lindsay, can I ask, when you say equity,
Yep.
which version of equity, which definition of equity? are
I
you
don't
talking
mean
about?
equity as in
People
equity
building
in your
wealth or-
home. I
okay.
mean, everyone deserves
Yeah,
a place to live.
Thanks.
Well, that's interesting. Those are equivalent to you?
What?
I just learned that's another way to express equity. Everybody
Oh,
deserves
well,
a place to
she
live.
asked.
No,
No,
yeah.
I think that's great. I'm just-
Yeah,
I'm
no,
listening.
I didn't actually think of equity in a home, but that's a good point. I was thinking of equity as in fairness. So another word I could have used would have been fairness.
I think when I did the housing one, inclusiveness, ownership, having some sense of decency, humanizing a person more, feeling that, you know, that pride in having something, you know, I looked at that, and that basically, you know, having that accessibility to have a place to go to rather than figuring out day to day, where am I going? That's the accessibility part. You know, living like a nomad. Opportunities now help with, you know, looking for work. A lot of times, a lot of places want to have somewhere solid. Where you living at, you know, something like having family over. So that was my number one. Sidewalks and crossroads is another word, you know.
Crosswalks,
Bridging the gap, building these streets here for accessibility for people with ADA, and people with, you know, strollers, you know, disability. Inclusive now, other people can visit others where they had that hindrance, where they couldn't get out and walk and go places, and they're walkers because the sidewalks were so terrible. Opportunity now is for people now to get out more and walk, not just ride a bike, but to take advantage. I walk a lot now, better. My third one was road maintenance. I think infrastructurally, that's a big thing too with our roads and the conditions that they're in for people for traveling, getting back and forth, for accessibility, 'cause a lot of places buses can't get to, even some back roads and stuff. Inclusive, now there being inclusivity, that part being now people feel more inclusive, they can get to work, they don't have to rely on somebody else to take them because of the roads or conditions or where they live. Opportunity now, people now can go to places and jobs where they couldn't get out or go to. So that's pretty much the sum of, I've heard that a lot, and dealt with that a lot with people because they live so far out and their roads are terrible. Or they haven't been fixed, so me having to meet them halfway, pick them up, take them to work. You know, so now that that's finally happening and will be happening next year with the new roads, which is great. I think that's gonna be a rise now, more people wanting to be out more and do more things, and do a lot more. So that's where those three pretty much come into play. They can even walk to work.
Sue, did you say when this exercise is done with other groups, what's going to be done then with all these value words?
Good question.
I think we were thinking that we could use the value words to create a word map similar to a heat map.
Oh.
You where you can see which values are most present for the majority of people. And then that could also be used as part of the town plan to express what drives us when we develop our goals. Right? You talked about the 12, to me, those 12 themes, if you will, could also be, another way of looking at that could be our value words, right? What do we think of, I mean, when you do this kind of stuff, you typically start, okay, what are the values that are driving you to do this kind of stuff? That's my personal opinion.
I could see how this two-part exercise could be reversed as well. What values do you care about? And then what tangible ways do you prefer to see these manifest? I'm not saying that would be better or worse, but
It's great input.
it's
great input.
if you presented that to us here tonight, I would have gone along with it just as well as this, I think. Although maybe it's more like presumptuous or some word like that to like lay out some values for people to choose from instead of just like kind of safer, like tangible themes like housing and stuff. Like if you lay out like safety and sustainability and equity, then people may be like,
I will say
I don't need to tell me what to believe and feel.
Sustainability, that's a good one for capturing climate. I couldn't think of these words. I would need a list, I
Thinking in one,
think.
yeah.
I will say this, the discussion we've had around what value words and why we applied them has been really valuable for me because it's opened some of my eyes on, why we use the terms we use for values. Inclusion, and I would have said maybe independence, but the point isn't which one's right or wrong, it's that's what he thinks of when he's using that term, right? So that would lead me to do it the way we, and again, I'm not really arguing, I'm just sort of discussing in my own head, but that's would lead me to do it the way we did it because you sort of tease out the why are people thinking the way they're thinking when they use those value words. And again, the equity stuff, everybody deserves a home to be in, is a way to look at equity that I hadn't necessarily looked at before.
I think, though, I do wonder, is it better to kind of get to the goals, like Lindsay mentioned earlier? Like, if we're in the values, is that a little too esoteric for some people?
It might be a little too much, considering that we're actually creating a planning document. When I think of planning, values, of course, factor in, but what I would write down more often would be like goals and objectives rather than the values.
So what's the core meat of it? That's what I guess I'm trying to figure out with this exercise. What's the core of that you're trying to get at? The values, you're trying to get at the equities. I'm just trying to get an answer. I can probably get a better rational visualization.
We're trying to get at, what are the aspects of government and civic life? Some of it, we do have boards that deal with historic preservation and that kind of stuff, but what are those aspects that are most important to people? And then also what, with the values, it's a way to kind of frame the goals and the strategies, things that's the way I view it.
I would think of it as not specifically tied to a budget, but what are we going to spend our resources on of these 12 categories or something related to them? And then the values are, why are we doing that? What values do spending our resources on those particular items represent in terms of the values we have as a town?
So I could see this being, if we were just take our existing town plan and format and everything and then transfer it to the new one, which I know we're probably going to modify it a bit more heavily, but everything else being the same, this could inform, like, it seems that the townspeople care more about these goals, policies, and actions than these. So like each chapter or each subsection isn't necessarily weighted equally. So it can be a bit more direction to all the different implementers of the town plan's actions. Be
And
like,
the
hey,
values
try to
too.
work on these first.
Yeah, the town plan's going to have a section on it's gonna have the sections it's gonna have, but probably in addition to that, it's gonna have some idea of how the town values and prioritizes those sections, right? And how they reflect the values of the town, I would think at least.
There is at least one part in the town plan now that says like five themes or goals that in all the public outreach that was done, it seemed to come up the most, like more access to the waterfront, more bicycling infrastructure, and then there's 3 others.
Yeah.
So maybe similar, kind of values exercise was done for those.
Now, has
To
any of
attain
that
those.
changed over the time since then?
Maybe it has.
I mean, this.
I'm sure housing will probably, if
I
you
think
do the same thing, housing would be
much higher than
classified.
it was back in 2011 when we were doing outreach. I think sustainability is higher.
Sustainability is a big one, affordability is the other.
Economic development
Yeah,
is
economic
probably a lot
development,
higher
yeah.
than had
Yeah.
been at that time.
So I think you saying that and then critiquing that and then building on top of that what we have already might be able to give a guideline or focus on what we lay out. Because everybody's gonna have their own different, actually, opinion on this compared if you did a survey. So I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, Chad's already trying to get their little thing going too.
Who is he?
The town select board and try to get theirs. So yeah, this is what I'm trying to just get some clarity on the direction with this and with the towns.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Gary, this was kind of a test to see how it could run.
Okay.
We're probably gonna go out in the spring to
Okay.
do some outreach, so,
Oh, okay.
we've got some time to refine.
Oh, so this is
it.
not a rush job or anything, okay? This
No.
is just something we're just doing a little exercise.
No, actually, nor does it become sort of official language of the town plan, right?
Yeah.
We're just a small group that's really more of a pilot group.
That's true.
To kind of figure out what do we wanna
Which
do.
month did you rejoin?
I think I was gone a year.
No, but which month, like,
I joined, I think with Jessica Kelt.
No, you recently joined in July.
Yes, yes.
oh, so maybe the town plan, like, schedule of how we're gonna proceed was just a bit before that?
I think we had started.
Yeah.
before, Yeah.
So May 2026 is our deadline
Okay.
for, our state statute imposed deadline for every 8 years revising or at least updating the town plan.
Okay.
So, it'll be here before we know it, and there's a lot to do, because we feel like we shouldn't just do a minor update, we should do some major changes, I think
Right.
we all discussed. But yeah, it's a year and a half that we have, so.
Okay.
Sure. So in terms of what we're going to be doing with it, one idea that we had tossed around was also, especially when we're going to additional groups, to ask optional basic demographic info that they could provide, and then maybe areas of the town that they live in or the street that they live on, not asking for their full address or whatever, but to whatever level that folks feel comfortable answering any of those questions, then we would be able to see, do different kinds of people or people in different areas of town have different understandings of this? Do we get any sort of consensus within smaller groups of people in the town? And are we getting a fuller picture of the range of opinions from that? Maybe there isn't a significant difference, but it could be useful to get a sense of a broader picture of the town.
And then depending on how much we value spreading things equally or different groups or something, then, anyway. But yeah, that would be informative, I think.
Sure.
Does anybody else want to share what they had, or?
Oh, Bonnie, right?
If she wants to.
I haven't heard.
She wants to.
Was there more?
Yeah, I guess I really love the historic aspect of Brattleboro, and I think the words that for me are belonging. It's and I know this is kind of, like you said, esoteric, but I think when we preserve our historic properties, we give ourselves a sense of belonging in the bigger picture. And and also value. We add value to our town by valuing our history and our structures. And we really need good roads. I mean, these roads are crazy. Like, I think my car's gonna fall apart half the time. So, safety for the roads.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Bonnie.
Bonnie.
Did we have more for this agenda item, or?
No, it went faster than we could.
Yeah. One thing that's popping into my head now, kind of based on what Lindsay was saying earlier, do we think it would be helpful, or that folks would feel like they had more of an opportunity to be fully heard if we had another box that was also optional on this that said, why did you answer that way? And you could say as much as you want. Because, I mean, I'll be the one taking this down at some point, so I'm signing only myself up for typing all that
So would you
in.
I don't
want it
think that you
emailed
need-
or to you, or how do you?
We're gonna collect them again, but I mean, when we go out to more groups, people could give a longer form, and then we can just have a record of all of the things that people said, and maybe there's something we can figure out to do with those longer form answers. It's just,
Well, if you thought that there was something you could figure out to do with them,
Mhm.
then bless you.
Yeah.
And go ahead, but
Qualitative
I
statistics
would
is
say in
really hard.
general, I wouldn't necessarily ask for longer answers, and I would definitely be careful when you do your public commenting and stuff, that you either do it timed or that you, because folks don't, not so much, following that. So even if it was written,
Yeah, that.
it has a way of
definitely.
finding its way into spoken words in a meeting, and then it can take up a lot of time, so.
Yeah, I think with I've been thinking with a big group, this would need to be tweaked in some way.
Like silent. A silent meditation on Brattleboro's plan, and then you put down your words.
And then you leave.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
Yeah,
it sounds like it's kind of a charrette type
Mhm.
idea,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of people in this town who have a lot to say, which is really great, but there's a lot to hear as well.
So when you say groups, define, what are you looking at? There's groups of about 20, I mean,
Well, I mean, it could be done as like, you know, you could take it to the high school and do it with students. That would be easier. You know, that kind of thing is easier. But if you just have a big open public meeting,
We have to, by law, we're required to do public forums, to do a
Yeah.
public forum.
Public forums are great.
yeah.
Oh, no, I was answering yours.
Oh.
No, I know, yeah, that's what we do. I've done many of them.
We couldn't limit that. public
I just
forum.
want to figure out how you're going to put it out, yeah, that was my question.
I think we need to give some more thought to
Okay.
that.
Some real
Make sure
thought.
we're getting the
Because
information.
there's a lot going on with the different forms now with public safety and other stuff right now, so that's why I was saying, well, I don't know if you wanted to join with them or do it separate.
Oh, yeah, we're not trying to do
Okay.
anything with that.
Yeah, so I think the idea of this too is it's not like a scientific sampling.
Okay.
We're doing convenience sampling, I suppose, and we're just gonna keep going out to groups as far as seems useful and necessary until there's, you know, a sense of saturation that we've gotten all of the information that we're really gonna get, I think, is.
Yeah, or representation. I don't know if I'd say saturation.
You're going to feel saturated probably.
Saturation. that's a word.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a
And so I
stats
would
term,
see,
didn't
I would
mean
see
for
this
that to
early
sound-
on early on in some outreach.
Mm.
You know, because I think there might have to be some targeted when we get specific in chapters.
And before that happens, it will come before us again for like review and
Oh, sure.
brainstorming.
Oh, yeah, we're not gonna go out without,
Yeah. 'Cause,
without having the planning commission involved.
not that even having 9 minds total are gonna create a perfect document that doesn't have holes or, you know, imperfections in it, but the more eyes and minds, I think,
Yeah,
the better it can
definitely.
capture things. Anything else worth saying on this agenda item or asking of the commission or staff? Okay, we'll move on. This is a follow-up that was initiated because of that World Learning request for upzoning a couple of their parcels for their housing plans. But turns out it's evolved into something else and not really World Learning, their proposal, their request need not really even be brought up anymore because state statute has changed in a few ways and in ways that there's kind of forced implications upon municipal zoning if water and sewer service is available. And staff looked into it more. I'll say that I provided a bunch of questions, and then that became, some of those Q&As. I mean, I didn't provide the A's, Sue and the town attorney did, but they became a lot of the questions there in that memo. But I'll let Sue present the memo and say whatever she likes.
Yeah, so I think the key takeaway with this memo is that this statute is relatively new and there is no case law behind it. So, sometimes the art of writing statute isn't perfect. And, I think there are some things that, at some point might be litigated. The takeaway from the town attorney is it's really kind of a plain reading of the statute. And the intent of the legislature was basically to preempt local control and say if there is water and sewer, then you shall provide a certain density. So there are a couple outs or there's a couple exceptions, I guess, to that rule. One of which is capacity constraints. I've had some conversations with Public Works Department. They're trying to get some more information from their engineers, but they do know we have capacity constraints, particularly in the southern part of town on Old Guilford Road, where they think, they wouldn't be able to provide water and sewer without major upgrades, despite the water and sewer lines in the road. So that's an area of.
So that comment is not directly related to the SIT request, it's related to the general issue of areas that are within sewer and water boundaries, right? Just so I'm clear.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the comment that you made I read in the paper, the summary of that, in the Bradford Reformer, I believe. Well, you presented the select board, right, basically, at some point?
Well, I mentioned this
Yeah.
as something that they're gonna.
But I did see like a summary
Yeah.
in regards about that, the comment, one of them about sewage and all that, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, what else do I want to say about it? The town does have a water and sewer ordinance. The select board are the water and sewer commissioners. So where statute uses the term ordinance or bylaw, it's pretty well, the town attorney felt, well, Brattleboro's chosen to have an ordinance, and the select board are the commissioners, and therefore we wouldn't go about creating different rules in zoning bylaw. So it is the select board's role. Sometimes statute or ordinance, bylaw or ordinance is used because in different towns they might do it a different way. A couple of other things we talked about, our sewer and water ordinance, we could have a district boundary on it or some sort of distance from, maybe we'll run the pipe 200 feet from the main stem or something like that for connection. It doesn't exist now. That is something that could be added to the ordinance. And at the last meeting, we had talked about, well, could we upzone these areas to like residential neighborhood, one of those zoning districts, and then basically say, but if it's unwatered and unsewered, then it would have a lower density. He felt that was an option. That we could do that, but the intent of state law is basically to upzone these areas where water and sewer is available.
And the main point of doing something is to make people aware of this possibility. Because even if we don't do anything, it still exists.
Correct.
So, like, we could just put a note in our bylaws, like, check out this law that was passed apply at will.
Yes, but, there's some building form standards and density and, setbacks
Yeah.
and building size
Yeah.
and stuff that are different in the rural
Okay.
residential. So that, it's not ideal. You're not getting the best form of development
Mhm.
by just applying a higher density because you can't cluster it as
So we have
easily.
the ability to control how the density is exhibited on the land.
Yes.
Okay.
I think
And
if
that
it
would be the
was-
point of taking action.
If it was done in such a way that it prevented the density that
Sure.
the state statute
Right,
provides
then
for them, then
no
we would
good.
be invalid in
Right.
doing that.
We would want to do something within the bounds of the
But-
statute.
Right, you,
Okay.
you have the ability to set regulations on how that density takes shape.
Okay, John?
I apologize, I'm still a little bit confused. So it's still I don't think in quite the detailed terms that professionals in the field think. So it would still be the 50 or whatever, the standard state specified density, but we could determine height of building and all these other things within the boundaries.
Right, so for example, in our rural residential zoning district, I think the maximum height is 3 feet, three stories. Sorry, I think it's 3 stories.
Yeah.
If we upzoned it to the residential neighborhood, it's 4 stories. You can have more, different types of multi-unit dwellings in the residential neighborhood. I think in the rural residential, you can have up to maybe a 4-unit. A block apartment building, you're gonna get more density in a more compact area, so less sprawl on that particular
But
person.
those changes wouldn't fundamentally bypass the state requirements. They couldn't bypass the state requirements. They would simply supplement them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to share my perspective, which is that I recognize that there's already water and sewer. I think you said there's 3 regions where this applies that are currently zoned the rural residential district, but water and sewer goes through them, and so therefore a normal understanding of available, those 3 areas are available. Those parcels we saw and on Old Guilford Road and some other place. And generally, I feel like, and it's aligned with our some elements of our land use regs and town plan to build where there's already infrastructure and make use of already existing infrastructure. However, though, these areas were zoned rural residential, which has priorities and purposes of protecting natural resources, and they're implementing the 2018 future land use plan, which apparently the public was involved in and had a say and wanted these areas to stay, to protect natural resources, plus allowing low-density residential. So, we're maybe in a different time now, and maybe this new town plan, the public will say, hey, we care about housing more, so let's just change a lot of these rural residential areas to higher density. Maybe they wouldn't, maybe they'd want to keep it the same way. We're currently existing under that town plan, and I think it's wise. I like how Vermont tries to keep the dense, compact municipalities and protect, not just have like a continuous sprawl. My read of the statute in a municipal ordinance, areas that can be excluded from where water and sewer service is available. And I think the answer of the town attorney did say that this part is vague enough to offer municipalities multiple possibilities for interpretation, is that areas within a zoning district, the purpose of which is natural resource protection. That's one of the ways that a municipality can exclude an area from being available to water and sewer. And I feel like the rural residential district is just, both in the land use regs and the town plan, is just, littered with justifications of how that is protecting natural resources, whether that's open space or farmland or habitat blocks or wildlife corridors. So that's more the direction I'm leaning for those 3 regions. I do realize, housing crisis, and it's good to use infrastructure that exists, but I feel like the Old Guilford Road section won't even work because of capacity constraints. So we're just talking about 2 regions.
So your
World Living's gonna be.
recommendation would be for the staff to go work with the town attorney and see if these areas that you've identified could be used to, I don't know the right word to use, bypass or alter the state's direction?
What I would say, somewhat like that, is that, no, unfortunately, we don't really have any control over the water and sewer ordinance. I think DPW drafts that typically, and the select board approves it as water and sewer commissioners. So I don't know how much influence we can have on DPW. It depends on Sue's magic and such, and what we come up with, if it seems reasonable to them or not. But there's not, I think currently there is a definition of the Brattleboro sewer service area in the ordinance, and it's that area of the municipalities that's within 200 horizontal feet from the collection lines and manholes. So we could propose to change that definition to be that minus, certain areas.
So
For the reasons of natural resource
What's staff's
protection.
recommendation on how to, Sue, what's staff's recommendation on how to deal with this?
Yeah.
What is staff's recommendation?
To do about this, if you will.
To do about this, if the planning commission wants to make recommendations to the select board, to Public Works and select board, I think it's worth, hearing from Public Works, hearing where our constraints are. I don't think our ordinance has been working because it's just too expensive for people to, expand, run lines much different, connecting to a project has been done, but I don't know that I feel really strongly about putting some district boundary on it. I personally think that, and professionally, I think we should fall in line with what the state did, and they knew very well they were preempting local governments because there was a lot of testimony about that, and they just didn't care because Vermont needs like 24 to 30,000 homes by 2030. So while it is not in line with our town plan, I think that the policymakers at the state level have recognized the predicament that we're in and are trying to spur housing development. So I'm not looking for some way to kind of end run what the statute did.
I think it's also worth really thinking about that the rural residential district, if we're gonna take it at its face value that it's meant to be a conservation district, then the 1.5 acre minimum lot size is not a tool to do that. And the fact that it allows housing at all is really contrary to that purpose as well. There are examples of conservation districts specifically that I think are provided for in statute where no type of development except for very limited agriculture and or forestry related, conservation related development would be allowed for. And that's not what our district here is doing.
I'll just respond quickly to those 2 things from my point of view. One is that I think the statute, it doesn't say that to be excluded, it needs to be a conservation district. It says the purpose of which is natural resource protection. And that's not defined, that's pretty broad. It doesn't say, it could have said conservation district where housing is not allowed, but it didn't.
Our reading of that was really hanging on the word the purpose of which.
And actually, I don't have the exact full language in front of me, but it's not exempting entire zoning districts, it's basing areas within a zoning district. And I think that's really different too. Because we do have natural resource protection, we don't allow development in areas of steep slope of over 30 riparian buffers, wetland buffers, that kind of thing.
Oh, and you're saying that the purpose corresponds to the area, not the district?
Yeah, area within a zoning district is what the language says.
No, I know. Oh. Yeah, I know, but it's when it says areas within a zoning district, the purpose of which, well, in people's minds hearing that, is it saying the district, the purpose of which, or areas within a zoning district, the purpose is which?
That one.
Yeah, it was what you just said,
Okay.
the second one.
So the purpose of the area is, okay. Okay, I see.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So this is a higher level question. So we have town water and sewer here. I imagine there are places in Vermont that may have no town water and sewer, zero. So this law impacts us greatly more than some other places, correct?
That's correct.
And what, if anything, is the state doing to help us manage that greater impact? Anything?
It's a great question.
It is a great question.
Because
Yeah.
I come from a home rule state, and I've lived in home rule states, so this is very different for me, where we don't have that at all here. But then, additionally, I work for an affordable housing program in New Jersey, and New Jersey has fair share, where every town has an allotment
Yeah.
of number of affordable housing units, and I personally think this is the best possible solution for everywhere in the entire country, in my opinion. But we don't have that, and it doesn't sound like there's anything going on to help us with this, because I put housing as my number one thing on our little exercise earlier, but housing does come with costs to the community and everything else. That's concerning to me.
Yeah, I know one of our select board goals is kind of
Local control?
revenue sharing.
Yeah.
Revenue sharing, actually,
Yeah.
because you're right. I mean, you know, having more housing here or being the employment center for the county, like all of those have a cost, and we have very little county government in Vermont, in fact, all of New England as well. And so it is difficult. There's not a lot of incentive for small towns. I mean, there are programs, there are state programs to help provide centralized water and sewer, or wastewater. But, you know, they're smart too. Like, they know that, like, if you build it, it's gonna cost you a lot to maintain it, right?
Yeah.
So while you wanna maximize the systems that exist and that have capacity, yeah, there's also a lot of costs that come with that.
And us conforming to this law and updating our zoning does not reduce or share the burden of cost that would come to developers. So if developers still find it too expensive, then it's still too expensive to expand the water and sewer. Like, it's not like it's the town of Brattleboro's job,
Right.
like, oh, we want to put housing here, bring us the sewer. Like, it's not like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, there may have been a period in our history, maybe, I don't know, the 80s or the 70s, where the town was paying to expand.
Yeah.
We don't do that now.
Okay.
So I think one of the large last expansions was probably up to the Delta campus. That's kind of on the Guilford, if you go down 755.
Yeah.
We didn't, you know, we don't extend it. Sometimes we might be a sponsor of a grant and
Well,
provide
and in some
loans and they
cases,
pay
it
us
might make
back.
sense for us to do that. I'm not saying we necessarily shouldn't do that. I was just curious the implications of it. Okay.
So the developer owns responsibility for extending the cost of extending the line. If you run into capacity issues, for example, with water purification or whatever the heck it is, sewer plants, the town pays for that, right? It wouldn't be some pro rata that's applied to the developer, or would it be?
No, well, so,
Common
Are you talking-
costs associated with expansion is borne by the town. Specific costs relating to running the lines would be borne by the developer, or is that too simplistic?
I'm not sure I understand the first part. You said common costs?
Yeah, like, for example, you know, we have to upgrade the capacity of the sewage facility.
We probably wouldn't extend lines if we had to upgrade and, you know, I mean, there could be improvements that are
But the
made.
town would pay for it. the developer wouldn't, if the.
I'm not sure we would allow an expansion if it was going to be a costly upgrade to the system. like
Okay, I suppose that answers my question in a different
Would
way.
it help
Okay.
to use a hypothetical example of something that's off of Maple Street but needs more capacity to get up a hill, if such a thing existed? Would the developer be paying for that, or is the town paying to upgrade the?
Right, so this would be Winston property, right? If they're
Okay,
able to,
okay.
it's okay. I mean, if they're able to do a housing development there, there's
Right.
some, they would need bigger lines, bigger water lines, and they would pay for that. We would not pay for it.
Now, hence doing that, there have to be a big capacity for flow at the treatment facility.
Right. We do have plenty of capacity, both in sewer and in water. Now, there's certain type of wastewater, though,
Right.
that has limited capacity.
Okay, and the town would pay for, if it had to upgrade, the town would pay for that. You're just saying the town likely wouldn't approve any changes that affect.
I suppose the town could pay for it, really it would be the users, so,
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, the town pays for it, but they just bill it back to the.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got my answer.
yeah,
I got my answer.
yeah.
That's what I wanted to know.
Sue, have the capacity issues, like what we found out with Old Guilford Road, rural residential currently, has that informed previous zoning districts decisions? Do you know, or
The
like,
capacity, no, in terms of where we drew the boundary lines,
yeah.
no.
So in some cases, we may have boundary lines drawn for districts with high density and some with low that don't actually match up with what the current water and sewer infrastructure capacity could support. So just as a matter of process in the future, right? If we're gonna figure that out for Old Guilford Road to inform maybe whether or not we want to keep it rural residential or residential neighborhood, it could be useful to
Yes.
inform the entire town's districts where there's water and sewer.
We did look at the water and sewer when, yeah, I think I'm following you, Tom. If we knew there were capacity constraints, yes, we might not want to upzone something.
Mhm.
But I think in good faith to the statute, if there's no capacity constraints, then,
Oh, sure.
We
No,
should.
I was asking a broad question as far as like process with forming the districts.
So the SIT request came in. As part of the SIT request, we discovered that the state has, assumed ownership, if you will, of this portion of the zoning, whatever. I'm possibly using the wrong words. What is our next step as a result of learning this? Tonight, I presume, was mostly education-oriented.
There's 3 possible next steps.
yeah, so, in terms, if you're concerned about world learning, they already are aware of the statute, said it might take some time before the planning commission decides what they're gonna do, but they could come in tomorrow with an application that asked for the 5 units per acre, and we'd have to honor that.
Yeah, what I'm really trying to get to is I just don't want to spin wheels. So I want to come out of this with, okay, here's what we're thinking as a group, and here's the next steps, and we all agree, whether we agree necessarily with the state's law, here's what we all agree we're going to do.
So what we could do is we could look at we could understand water and sewer capacity constraints to identify whether, there's areas that we don't want to upzone because we're gonna fall on to the state statute says we can exclude these areas. So that could be the far southern parts of Old Guilford Road. Right, so I think we do want to understand what those constraints are. And then I think we want to look at the options for upzoning, the areas that aren't constrained.
If I'm not mistaken, was the third sort of option that we could also have the caveat that unserviced or low capacity areas of those developed districts, like if we were to pull Old Guilford Road area up to RN, say, but we get an opinion from DPW that lacks capacity at the moment, that would fall into that density limit with the
We could do it that way.
More clustered standards.
We could do it that way. There's a couple options in the, so you don't have the capacity, do you want to upzone it and then have a caveat? Or do you want to?
I would worry that if we went the route of not.
I think whatever
upzoning-
staff's recommendation is on that is, we would entertain, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Just whatever seems
Yeah, I
most,
think that's the point.
most simple and best for the public and truthful and in line with the values and goals and legal.
I think it would be very interesting, the first one, conducting a review of the water and sewer areas and understanding capacity constraints.
And we haven't actually seen a map of like,
That
how much
seems
area we're talking about here. or-
Like good information to know and makes us seem informed when we move forward.
Yes.
So Brian had mentioned to us that DPW has a model of the whole system, and so they're aware of exactly where those constraint areas are. So we just have to coax it out of them.
Okay.
We don't have to coax that, right? That's what I've been talking to Dave about.
The only thing I'll add is, and I want to hear what everyone else thinks about it, at least how I represent this, and it's more general than just what I was describing before about these 3 rural residential areas and how the town plan, future land use, and it's just generally that now, maybe with some of last year's statutory change, but certainly we're learning about it, and there was more this year, it seems that, there's implications, there's ramifications now, planning and land use ramifications that are forced upon us to having water and sewer. Like, it's out of the some elements are out of the municipality's control. So I feel like to the extent that we can weigh in and shape the part of the water and sewer ordinance that defines the boundary, now maybe that can't exclude currently served areas because of the attorney and professionals' interpretations, and it seems reasonable to me. It could at least maybe limit future expansions into areas that the townspeople, through the town plan and future land use, have apparently decided they want to keep rural. Because now if DPW and the select board decide to expand water and sewer, that comes with ramifications of greatly increased density, extra height, and other things. Whereas that wouldn't be in alignment, wouldn't harmonize with our town plan. And I would hope they would go through Sue first to be like, hey, what are our town plan goals? But if DPW has a great idea and got a great grant to expand sewer, then maybe they just would, and that would conflict with our land use
It
goals.
just makes sense though to me to have the town study the potential effects of the state enforced, density requirements, right, on our capacity.
Yeah, and Tom, I didn't, option 2, next step number 2 is actually to, make some recommendations to the select board, because I think
so that would be that.
now that they are tied together, I think it's perfectly reasonable that if the planning commission as a whole wants to do it, or if there's like some subcommittee that wants to work with staff, we can make some change, we can propose some changes, because I did kind of give them the heads up that had changed, the select board. And then I've also talked to the public works director and said, hey, listen, like, this is really important, because if you are going to extend, it means there's this whole other bit. So
Right.
I think we're all on board with that, and
Okay,
maybe
great.
it is time to take a look at the
Yeah.
water and sewer ordinance, and I think that the planning commission, your thoughts would be welcome.
Okay,
But it's
great.
kind of separate from the zoning piece as well.
Okay. I'd like to work on them at the same time, more or less,
Okay.
just thematically.
So I think the first step is, let's figure out what the system is.
Oh,
and what
sure.
are the constraints. And try to do that for November?
Okay, yeah, so next time, just have kind of more of an informative, visual and educational about this, and then work on changes or decisions after that. Yeah, Dan?
So next time we'll look at the DPW model, as you were
If we-
describing.
That's what I'm hoping.
So the other side of this that I guess we should also talk about is the sort of the other, the outlying areas, the rural areas. There's sort of a tipping point with density where, of course, your water supply and your septic systems start to conflict, basically, for lack of a better way to describe it. And so there becomes a necessity to supply water and sewer rather than just nice to have idea, right? So I guess I would want to see if there is a model, or if there's some sense of the density of systems and how dense they could get? And, you know, what's the tipping point of where you actually have to provide water and sewer to certain areas?
Because you've taken away people's ability to provide it themselves, essentially. You're saying at
Well,
some
the
point
density
sewer
determines
expands so much that someone couldn't have a septic system in the area?
Sure.
Okay.
And or you couldn't.
That-
get
I don't
safe
know how we're gonna get at that, because I think the tipping point also involves cost and.
Absolutely,
so
I'm just, so that would just help us prioritize, right? So if there's already a highly dense area that is on the verge of not being able to drill another well or something of that sort.
Yeah, I get what you're getting at, and it's also complicated by the fact that the state does on-site water and wastewater, so we don't have that data per se. So.
We don't have that for the town of Brattleboro?
No, because the state issues the permits, and so they review all the,
Right.
So you don't know where the wells and septic systems are in Brattleboro?
not anymore.
Well, the wells, aren't
I mean,
aren't all the
you know,
wells on some
if-
PSGI map? Or VCGI?
Not all the individual wells, no.
That's fascinating.
So,
It's the Wild West out here.
So is that a
Because
Freedom of
it's drill, baby,
Information
drill,
Act
huh?
request?
well,
you have no
I think it's a
idea.
capacity requirement. You know, I don't know, you know, can we call up somebody from the state and they can say, oh, we know it's tenuous in this part of Brattleboro, maybe. But if absent that, I'm not sure how we would determine it.
So roughly, I guess ballpark, what would percentages would you say in Brattleboro would have well water versus state, versus town? I mean, there's gotta be a ballpark figure somewhere. You know, you're in the outskirts in the boonies. in
Well,
the
are you
back.
talking area, land area, or are
Yeah.
you talking users?
Like 2/3.
Well, land area.
Yeah, 2/3, I would say
But
about
at
2/3
least,
doesn't
yeah.
have.
So
water.
that taking that and running with that, you could factor that in.
An extremely back of the napkin assessment would be that about 2/3 of our land area that maybe has 1/3 of our housing units
Right.
is unserviced, and that's the rural and rural residential. And then the other third,
Mhm.
which is that area east of the highway, and then that small
Right.
area going west, that's probably got at least 2/3 of the housing,
Yeah.
but that's the only serviced area.
I hear what you're asking for, Dan. I'm not sure we're gonna be able to
I'm just
deliver
wondering
it,
if
but
we-
we'll give some thought.
If when we're looking at the DPW model, we can say, so on this end, this density or the, something to help us prioritize one of those three areas, if it were. Or not, are they all equal, are they all equally burdened / tenuous? I don't know.
I'll have to admit, me personally, it may not be the way my mind thinks, or I may not know much about what you were saying, so it didn't land well for me, but if you keep thinking about, I don't mean it didn't land well, but it didn't land understood very well.
There's a
So
lot of factors, yeah.
If you feel like this is still something important, please bring it up again, and
Yeah, we're just
depending on
looking for
how
next time.
what
That's all.
staff find and what they bring up. Because I don't even know where to look, or what to, based off what you're saying, so. But, I mean,
If I
staff
could
does
add
most
one
of our homework.
thing, like about water capacity, you need water for fire suppression, right? So in rural areas, you have ponds that are used for fire brigades and so forth. That's something to balance, right? That sometimes you run out of water, literally. So anyway, capacity issues are more complicated than just how much you can supply and how big the pipes are and all that.
Okay.
It's what the need is on the other end of the pipe, outstreams.
So it'd be like constraints, like, not just water, but, sprinklers and all that.
All that, yeah. That's why you
Factor
can't-
that in, yeah. We got a lot of water downtown.
Okay, are we all set for this agenda item for now?
For now.
Okay. Great, let's move on to the updates. Lindsay's project, she's spearheading, and mine. Lindsay, would you like to go first, and then? Take our input?
I drafted a letter, and then with Sue's input, she improved upon it and added resources. The point of the letter is to contact property owners in the Putney Road Service Center zoning district to remind them of the development opportunities that exist in the zone, especially in regards to housing. So we've drafted a letter, it was included in the packet, and I think that we were just looking for the board's go ahead to send this letter out to some property owners in that district, and maybe drum up some housing.
We should get a chance to see the letter. Do you want any additions or I don't know if you want any feedback on that letter? You already pretty much.
I think that's what this, I think this is for.
I would probably want to read it first. I haven't read it.
Oh, it was in the packet.
Okay. I can see that. It's in the
You
packet.
see it on your phone, now you've got it.
I mean, I could read it if people
No,
want read.
that's fine. I mean, I feel confident in
I think it's a good letter. I don't think there's anything controversial or evil in it, so.
Well, maybe as far as
would-
Gary's input, unless he picks up on anything just now during these 10 or so minutes by reading it and hearing what we're saying, maybe assuming that, let's just say tonight, we vote or decide that, yeah, hey, this looks great with whatever edits we decide to make, and then we approve it, like, maybe don't send it out for a few days and give Gary a chance to give some input, and then if the input is so altering that then it needs to come back to us, then please do that, but if that seems reasonable in your minds, then
It
just
probably
do
won't
that.
go out till Friday, I got it.
Yeah, I'll just take a quick peek at it. There might be other resources and other stuff that
Okay.
been overlooked and added.
It does all have your names on it, so you should like the letter going out, because it has your name on it, so.
Yeah.
It's just seals.
I'd rather have you write the letter and have my name on it than have me write the letter, so I'm
Oh,
good with
well,
what
thank you.
said, Yeah.
You're correct.
So
Thank you.
that's a plus.
So this would be on town letterhead, is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it'll be one of these with the World Learning Center. I'll take a peek, critique, if
Great.
need be.
So you'll have a few days
I'll
for
take it
that
back up if
before
they say New York printed.
Okay.
So
I have
we vote tentatively and go with sending it out? Is that?
Sorry, say again?
We vote tentatively on sending it out?
Yeah, does anybody else
We
have
can make
any
the motion.
comments
I
or
have a
anything?
few things to say,
Yeah.
but, I mean, I think it is actually, even though we don't do it often, but we do it for minutes, it's actually good to make the motion and then discuss.
Oh,
After the
I
motion.
move to send it out.
Okay, I'll second. Any discussion?
Tom?
Yes? Okay.
Sure. Bonnie's on there, I don't know if she has anything to say.
Yeah, Bonnie, feel free to put your hand up with any input. I'll go first, though. I think we discussed this last time. The service center was chosen because it seemed like the area with the most potentiality for development. Okay. I thought that, it's already a page and a half long, but I thought that, and it's well-written, and I like everything that's in there, but I thought it was going to have some actual details about the land use right changes that
Has a
have
link
occurred.
to them.
It has a link to them.
It has a link to the land use regulations. I think that, my thinking is that they didn't need, this is the Putney Service Center district, so the changes in regulations are not as relevant for that district. That came up when we were talking about the residential districts, where like density has changed and some of those stuff, but in the Putney Service Center district, that wasn't relevant.
Yeah, that's true, there weren't major changes, it's more just calling attention that
This
could do
already
housing
exists.
here, yeah.
Like, did you know, like, you own an auto dealership, but you could also own an auto dealership and apartment complex,
So,
like that.
there were a few, maybe they're not earth-shattering, but there were a few changes to the service center district.
With
And
like an extra story or.
The coverage percentage, the extra story, density was removed, added single unit attached housing as permitted, and then maybe a big one, missing middle housing overlay applies to service center,
Yeah.
right? They probably would need to speak with staff to actually understand, what that means and everything, but I don't know, it's up to you guys if you feel like, if you list these things. And then we also you know, it's not specific to the service center district, but it applies to more districts, but we loosened up, let's just say, standards to attached housing, to multi-unit housing, to SROs, to rooming houses,
All right.
and we made front setback waivers.
I don't think that any of the people getting this letter are going to know
Care about those
that.
details.
I think that was my thinking
was
is-
to just let them know that they
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
I
and they
think,
could look
I mean,
up the
you're
detail.
totally right. We could let them know about that, but I don't think that will mean anything to any of them.
Now, you're sending it out,
It-
spearheading it to where, I mean, there's already, like Subway's out there already has an apartment above where they're at. There are a few, but there's always land, I know you guys did.
Sue has chosen the location.
So you chose Putney Road?
No, I chose
You
Putney
chose
Service
Putney.
Center Road as a place to send the letter to, and then Sue has picked out a number of parcels that we're going to target.
Okay, so you spearhead certain places where you're gonna, oh, that's my question, okay.
Yeah, 'cause
I
last-
already know which ones are out there, which ones already have, and which ones aren't.
Because last meeting, I think generally, those of us in attendance and staff agreed that like, maybe we don't have the capacity to just send it out to the whole town. Right now, like, let's just focus on what we think are the most impactful, see how that goes, and then maybe do another round and round. So, I hear what you guys are saying, and I'll defer to you about not putting in those, you know, specific details. But, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the letter, it says even that just last, year, recently, we made changes to the land use regs
Nope.
that have implications or greater opportunities for these things, in addition to what already existed.
Nope.
Do you think that's valuable to add? Like, hey, recent improved?
No, because I don't think they'll know what it said before. But we could. If you think it's important and other people think it's important, I don't, but we could.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah,
think
I
that
mean,
most people even know that land use regulations exist after they start up their business. I don't think that that's relevant to them or something that they stay informed at. I think the fact that we have all these lovely seats here that sit empty every time is an indication of that. I think my hope was with the letter to give them a basic reminder. You can do this in your area. And here are some resources to find out more, and here's Sue's contact information. If you're interested in this, let's connect. If they are so much in the know that they know what was allowed in their district before, then probably getting this letter would already make them go, huh, maybe I should take another look again. I thought that I knew what was allowed here, and what I thought before was this. Maybe I'll go and take another look and see if anything's changed, or get in touch with Sue about it.
Well,
I don't like to give people more information than they need.
Okay. I mean, we can certainly vote on it, and I'll defer to, the majority, like we all have to, but, there's a line telling them the specific of, hey, there's more than one use, that you're allowed to have more than one use per lot. So, I mean, that, you're getting to a specific there, but in general, like, I still feel like what I understood in the beginning we should do is, I'm fine not talking about specifics, but I feel like we should have at least a sentence saying, we recently updated land use regs, greatly allowing more and different and expanded, however you want to write it, housing, and it's relevant to you, but you can go here for more information. Just some acknowledgement of the recent changes and expansions and work.
So could that
So
go
that'd
in
be-
the bulleted resource section instead of in the body of the letter? The first bullet in the resource section is land use regulations for the town, specifically section 223,
Yep.
Service Center District, and then we give a link to it.
I mean, to me, this was the actual point of writing the letter, to notify them of changes.
Yes, that is
So-
the point for the residential area, which we haven't gotten to yet. The point for the service center district was just to let them know that housing was a possibility in their district. They're two separate letters.
Gotcha. But we did also make changes that made changes to the service center, either directly or indirectly.
It sounds
So-
like I should put something in
Yeah.
about this.
Well, I'm just
Sounds
saying.
important
I mean,
to you.
so that would be my proposed edit, and we can vote on it. And then if it gets shut down, then it'll just defer to the original letter.
Well, if you have more discussion on it, it's up there. I mean, you got time, it's not. That's
So I guess that'd be my motion, though. I mean, I guess there can be other edits too that we can vote on, but I don't actually know the process if there's proposed multiple edits, but anyway, that's my proposed edit to the motion. I don't have the exact wording, but I trust you guys to write it. Any discussion about that proposed amendment?
Sure.
People want to proceed that way? Does that seem fine?
I think that makes sense. Can I ask a question as well?
Sure.
I suppose an opportunity. So this is going to the owner of the property. You're assuming, I'm sure you have the addresses of the property owners. You're assuming that the owner is going to know the usage of the property on hand. I'm just curious, you're targeting this zone, but are you also going to provide any information about their specific property, such as nothing specific per person?
No, not specific to their property. It just says that this zoning district allows multiple uses, including housing. And then on the resource section, it gives a link to the land use regulations where they can learn more about their particular district and all the different things that are allowed or disallowed there.
Yeah, I'm just curious, well, I guess what I'm getting at is that the property owner, if you were to knock on their door at the property, you may not find the property owner, right? So
Probably not in
it's
some
going to be
cases.
mailed to the property owner.
So you think the property owner might not know actually what the property's being used for?
Well, they may.
Might not even live there.
It may have to, it may be good to facilitate a discussion, or, you know, that the person leasing the property, for example, might need to talk, you know, to the owner, or the owner might need to talk to the officer and so forth. So you're not gonna mail these to the property, you're gonna mail them to the property
To
owner.
the property owner.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, on the property record card,
Not property
which
management.
some are out of state.
Yeah.
Normally, yeah. Pretty much. So now, once you send that kite out, what's the return you're looking at to get the response? What's the process
Just,
looking?
I mean, it's awareness, it's public awareness campaign, property awareness campaign. Hopefully,
Maybe get
hopefully
a
somebody
letter,
will
they
be.
say, just like you said, maybe say, wow, this has slipped my mind, and now I'll take a look at putting a piece of property on there, ADU or whatever the heck it is.
Or someone could be looking to retire and sell
Yeah,
their
yeah.
business, and then
It's
that
more
might.
valuable, I'll sell it to somebody that's a developer, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were meeting with somebody last week, and they were gonna put offices on the floor, and it was like, oh, well, you know, office market's not great.
Yeah.
Have you got housing? Like, that we constantly do that when we meet with people. Have you thought
And you know what, I agree
It's
with
just
that.
another way.
Because of the fact that a lot of people are selling, not saying legal, but selling their businesses sort of like Burton Car Wash. They were supposed to do something on Canal. They, for a reason, cut was cut. But there's a lot of places that are either redoing or getting bought out. So that being said, just trying to get an idea of roughly what you were looking about, what feedback you're looking back from our new owners, because that information is out there about the Act 250 anyway, the stuff they're doing. So my
Yeah,
thought
this
is-
doesn't get into the Act
Yeah.
250 and the exemptions, because this is really just, hey, are you interested? Come talk to us.
And if you want to add that, yeah, they had things about that too. I was just watching them put on, listening to Monte, like all the stuff they got. You know, these incentives, I call them, incentivizing.
Yep, but, yeah, there's funding sources and we're aware of them, or we're aware of them.
Quite a bit.
Are there any more questions before, I guess, we vote on the,
Yeah.
whether to include my amendment to the letter? Or to the motion to send out this letter?
Which one are we voting on?
Okay, so I guess I'd propose to send out the letter, but include in it a statement along the lines of that we recently amended the land use regs in many ways that enable housing development in the service district. But however, in line with that, you all want to write it.
So
So
you're
that's-
looking for a second.
That's my motion, looking for a second.
All right, well, I guess.
Can I see if I get a second before we discuss?
Sure.
Dan, okay. Okay, any
The
discussion?
wording you just used would be fine.
Any second?
Dan seconded.
Okay.
Any discussion about that amendment? After we vote on the amendment, then we'll vote on either the amended John's motion to send it, or just John's original motion to send it? None? Okay. All in favor of John's motion with my amendment? Tom?
Sure.
Tom?
Send it out.
Thank you.
Earned it.
So that's, Bonnie's hand is up, Tom's hand, Lindsay's, Gary's, and Dan's. Okay, all against? That's 0. All abstaining? John? Okay. I think though, actually, should give the opportunity, oh wait.
By the way.
Are there any other
Personally, don't take it personally, I have having written a lot of manuals for groups, I think short of an error in fact, just let the person who volunteered to do it. And that's the only reason I'm abstaining.
Oh,
No, not because I have an opinion one way or the other, I just think it's a hellacious job to write a letter.
yeah, well, I think Lindsay and staff did a good job, but, all our names are on it, the planning commission as a whole, and so.
I think
yeah,
that
that's-
feedback is necessary for everybody to feel.
I felt
they
strongly
can put
about that one
going out.
point. So.
No, again, I.
No, and I respect that.
I just-
I do. I just want to make sure, I mean, if I'm sending something out, I want to make sure, put my name and reputation on that,
Mhm. So I think we actually have to do the motion now, because that was just to add the amendment, to do the
Yeah.
motion to actually send it out with that amendment.
Now, you said you wanted to wait. Did you say something about you wanted to add, or what was it then? Yeah, I know you made it a little.
Oh, I was just reinforcing Tom's.
Okay, so let's go.
So I don't know if now I've made that motion, or it's still John's motion with the with the amendment. I think it's John's with the amendment,
I do vote to send it out.
but the group has amended it, so I don't
Bonnie's
know.
nodding her
Can
head.
someone second that?
I was second.
Gary seconded it, okay.
Let's just get it out.
Any final discussion on this agenda item, on this amendment? We
Well,
covered,
no.
we covered the official letterhead.
Sure.
Is it gonna have Brattleboro Planning Services letterhead, or
Yes.
Brattleboro Planning Commission letterhead? Okay.
Emails on
Your email on it?
Yes, it has to.
Excellent, Sue and
I have a question about Sure. I agree with you about not adding too much detail. The second page with all of the bullet points, that's something that Sue could email to someone, but, I mean, I agree that you can include it, but did you discuss just sort of saving that, have the letter be call Sue? That's the message.
I think that our thinking is that this will just go on the back of the letter.
That's fine, yeah. I just-
Because we don't have emails.
Yep.
Yeah, so if people want to look at those resources, they will need to type in the addresses, yeah. Or reach out to Sue and say, hey, I got this great letter, now can you send it to me as a PDF and I'll click on all the links?
Emails, yeah, lists,
Yeah.
How about a QR code?
Or
I mean,
that.
worst case scenario, if it comes back forward, the road address, whatever, you guys resend it, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
Gary, I guess you still have the option of commenting after you read this in the next few days, and then you guys can just factor that in however you see fit. Let's just factor that into the motion too, I guess, if that sounds reasonable. Barring, what do people say? Barring objection. Okay, let's vote on that motion. Sending it, letterhead, my amendment. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's Bonnie, myself, Lindsay, Gary, Dan.
I'm gonna stay again, it passes, we're sending it.
Okay,
It's fine.
that's 5. And John, what's your abstaining?
Yeah, just abstain, that's it.
I'm gonna just not do my update for the downtown bike parking project. A little bit, I'll just say, a little bit has happened, not a lot. More next month.
Okay.
Public comment period is
That's
open.
looking around.
No members of
Any
the
phone
public.
calls? No? Anybody on the hotline?
Okay, that's closed. And we finish a minute early. All our business isn't complete, because I didn't give the update. So we need a vote to adjourn.
I vote that
All
we
those-
adjourn.
Make
Okay?
a motion that we adjourn.
We don't need a second for that, oddly enough. This is my recollection. But all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
It's all of us.
All
Two
right.
hands for Bonnie.
That's lunch. and
Bonnie,
dinner.
feel better.
Feel better.
We gave you a minute to heal up and get more sleep.